Hello and a very warm welcome to all of you. My name is Prateek and I'll be discussing the news today for 27th of September. In the main news, we have first news as APSPA extended in parts of Manipur, Arunachal Pradesh and Nagaland. So in this news, we'll talk about the whole idea about APSPA and some of the concerns associated with APSPA. In the second news, we have US tariffs on pharmaceuticals. So here we'll discuss the impact of the US tariffs on the Indian pharmaceutical sector and what measures that government can take to withstand this pressure. Third news is discovery of natural gas in Andaman Basin. So in this news, we'll discuss the importance of natural gas and how its production and exploration has received an impetus following certain government initiatives like HELP and open acreage policy. In this fourth news, we'll read about 7 out of 9 planetary boundaries breached. So in this, we'll discuss the concept of ocean acidification and some of the reasons through which this has been increasing and what can be done to overcome this. In the fifth news, we'll be studying about decline in child marriages in India. So here we'll talk about some of the reasons why the child marriages in India has seen a declining trend and what are some of the initiatives undertaken not just by India at large, but also by several states. In the last news, we'll discuss about India's urban definition and why it has come into controversy and what is the requirement for changes in terms of the definition of urban areas. Then in the places in news, we'll study about Ecuador and we'll also have certain quick updates as well. So in the first news, Ministry of Home Affairs has extended APSPA in parts of Manipur, Arunachal Pradesh and Nagaland. This topic is from GS paper 3 internal security and there was a direct question that came from this topic. So let's first understand what has happened. So the central government has declared the entire state of Manipur, excluding certain areas, as disturbed area. And this disturbed area is done under the Armed Forces Special Powers Act of 1958 for the another 6 months. Okay, so this is the news that recently the APSPA or Armed Forces Special Powers Act has been extended in the state of Manipur for another 6 months. Now, there are a couple of terms which are important here. First is the term disturbed area and second is the law itself. So if you look at the genesis of APSPA, it has its genesis in the year 1958 when it was first enacted or first implemented in the state of Nagaland. Now, reason for this, it was, as we all know, that law and order is essentially a state subject, which means that it is the responsibility of the state government to ensure that law and order situation is undertaken or it is taken care of. But there are certain circumstances, including the rise of insurgency or for the matter of the extremities or the intensity of the terrorist attacks or things like that. So it impels the government to ensure or the central government to take certain action. And this is the legal mechanism through which it empowers the armed forces to take certain action. And this can be taken in certain areas which are called as disturbed area. So disturbed area essentially comes from section 3 of the Armed Forces Special Power Act. Let's take a look at the concept of disturbed area. So disturbed area is defined under section 3 of Armed Forces Special Power Act. And what is the criteria? When any disturbed or dangerous conditions arise in any locality or in any state, which requires armed forces to aid or support the civil power. And this can be done either in the entire state or union territory or part of the state or the union territory. And who has the authority to declare a disturbed area? Can be done either by the president at the central level, or it can be done by the governor, or it can also be done through an administrator of a union territory. So this is all about the disturbed area. Now, what exactly are the special powers? So the special powers which are given to the armed forces, including the Central Armed Police Forces, are provided under Section 4 of the Armed Forces Special Power Act. And these powers are very important for ensuring that they are able to control and they are able to act effectively to control the terrorist activities and insurgency in certain areas. So what exactly are the powers which are given? So first power is given is that they have the authority to prohibit a gathering of 5 or more persons in any area. So they have this power. Second power is with respect to arrest of any person without a warrant if there is some reasonable suspicion is arising. Third, there is also power to enter into premises or search that premises, and importantly, this can be done without any judicial warrant. Fourth, they have the power to destroy any arms dump, fortified position from which armed attacks can be launched, or any training camp for armed volunteers. So these are the power. Apart from that, the armed forces can also take any action, including killing of the perpetrators, if they feel that there is reasonable reasons that could be justified for such acts. So these are the powers which are given under Section 4 of Armed Forces Special Power Act. So let's take a look at the question which came in 2015. So it said that human rights activists constantly highlight the view that Armed Forces Special Powers Act, APSPA, is a draconian act. Leading to cases of human rights abuses by the security forces. What sections of APSPA? So this is the question. Section of APSPA that are opposed by the activist critically evaluate the requirement with reference to the view held by the Apex Court or by the Supreme Court. Okay. So in this, first of all, we need to understand the rationale. We have understood the rationale for imposing APSPA. It is to ensure that the state police machinery is aided with central help as well, to ensure that any sort of increase in intensity in violence can be curbed. So basically, it is to aid the state police agencies. Secondly, it is to ensure that the terrorist activities and insurgency can be neutralized effectively. So essentially, it has a security-oriented reason or rationale. Now, what are some of the concerns associated with it? So there are 3 major concerns associated with this. First is it can be considered to be against right to life under Article 21 of the Constitution, life and personal liberty, because sometimes you will see that the nature of the law is something that goes against the due process of the law. And as we all know that after Menka Gandhi case, the expression procedure established by law was effectively turned into due process of law, even though the term is not being used here, but we may consider that any law with which the state is denying the life or personal liberty of any person, it should be done on the basis of proper procedure established by law that is fair, reasonable, and just. So in a way, it is criticized that the APSPA essentially goes against the tenets of right to life and personal liberty under Article 21. Secondly, it is also against the natural process or natural justice. And thirdly, it also goes against the local sentiment. So because it makes the local population be wary of the interference of the centralizing forces of the government. So these are the concerns associated with it. Now the question says that what are the sections of APSPA? So here we have to be very specific. We cannot write anything. We have to be very specific. So we know that Section 3 talks about the meaning of disturbed area, but that is not what concerns the human rights activists. What they are concerned about is Section 4. Section 4 essentially talks about the special powers of the armed forces, and it talks about all the things that we discussed in terms of arresting without warrant, siege, search, etc., and in fact even killing, right? So all these aspects are given. Then section 6 is also, which is contested by the activist, which provides for immunities. So any act that they do under this act, they are immune, they get immunities because of section 6 of APSPA Act. So these are the two provisions or sections which are contested or opposed by the human right activist. Now the third part is the requirement with reference to the view held by the Apex Court. So the Apex Court has essentially upheld the APSPA. So this has gone to Supreme Court several times in terms of whether it is valid constitutionally or not. So Supreme Court, in a very important judgment called Naga People's Movement versus Union of India 1997, has upheld the whole APSPA Act, but it has also said that it needs to be used in a careful manner, or it should not be done in an arbitrary manner. And secondly, in another case in 2015, in Manipur case, the Supreme Court said that immunity cannot be considered to be absolute in nature. So Supreme Court has tried to dilute the provisions of APSPA through its various judgment. In fact, more than Supreme Court, even certain committees like the second ARC committee and has also said that this act should be repealed. So in this regard, you tell me whether it is required for this law to continue or should it be repealed. Moving to the next news. Planetary Health Checks 2025, 7 of the 9 boundaries breached, oceans in danger. So this topic is primarily from GS Paper 3 Environment, but there are certain aspects which can also be used in GS Paper 1 Geography, right? So what exactly is this news all about? It says that there are several planetary boundaries which are being now under threat. And in fact, this report talks about 7 out of 9 planetary boundaries which have crossed the threshold of the safer limit. So we must understand the concept of planetary boundaries. So planetary boundaries are ecological threshold that defines the safe limit within which humanity can safely exist. For example, if you go and check your blood pressure level, so generally it is given under 80 by 120 or 120 by 80, something like that. So you check your blood pressure level through a certain indicator. If that limit crosses, right, if your blood pressure crosses that limit, now you are susceptible to several health issues that can arise because of that. Right. So essentially what it means is it is also similar to that you are checking several indicators for the concerns and safety of the planet. Right. So they are called planetary boundaries. So these are vital for maintaining global stability, resilience, and life support functions. So let us take a look into the 9 planetary boundaries that are there. So first is in terms of climate change. Second is freshwater change. Third is ocean acidification, and this particular report is talking about ocean acidification. As you may know, acidification essentially refers to the pH level in any in water or in any substance. So 0 to 7 pH essentially refers to something being acidic in nature. 7 essentially is neutral, and 7 to 14 essentially refers to basic in nature. Okay, so as you know that with increase in climate change or increase in the release of carbon dioxide, ocean surfaces takes or absorbs a lot of hydrogen or carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And because of that, the level of hydrogen or the level of carbon increases here, and then it reacts with water, leading to carbonic acid, which is H2CO3, and then it disintegrates, leading to more number of H plus ions, right? And this, what exactly is the problem with ocean acidification? It has a detrimental impact on the marine life system. Why? Because the marine life system, they have calcium substrates, like you have mollusk, you have coral reefs. Now these get dissolved because of enough ocean acidification. So what I'm trying to say is that with increase in ocean acidification, the biodiversity is at problem or is at loss or is at threatened, and also because of that it is also leading to problems with respect to the resources in the marine system. Then there are other systems such as change in biosphere integrity, modification of biogeochemical flows, increase in atmospheric aerosol loading, land system change, introduction to novel entities, stratospheric ozone depletion. So these are the 9 entities, out of which only 2 are there which are presently in control, which is increase in this atmospheric aerosol loading first, and stratospheric ozone depletion. So these 2 are only which are in check or which are in safe limit. And in fact, this report has attributed global cooperation for this major the fact that this is under control. In fact, Montreal Protocol has led to reduction in the stratospheric ozone depletion, right? So let's take a look about the report. So what are the key findings? So first thing is that, as we have discussed, that 7 out of 9 PBs or planetary boundaries have transgressed except atmospheric aerosol loading and stratospheric ozone depletion. All of the rest of them have increased the safe limit. Then what is the one which is presently in a note, which is the present key area of focus, that is ocean acidification. It has crossed its safe operating space for the very first time, and this is going to have threatened the marine organisms such as corals and mollusks. We have discussed already how. Then climate change indicators, it shows worsening trend. Atmospheric carbon dioxide has reached 423 ppm, which is rapidly approaching the high risk threshold of 450 ppm. Then biosphere integrity, it remains in steep decline with extinction rate persistently above the safe threshold. So these are some of the important details that the report highlights. Now, what can we take away from this, or what can be done to curb these changes or challenges? So for this, the report has highlighted the creation of Planetary Boundary Initiative, PBI. And what exactly it is going to be a global platform which will track the risk, it will develop solution, and it will improve communication. Because unless the global world knows about the challenges which can come because of these challenges, it will be very difficult for people to coordinate their action. So it is essential that there is a body that transmits such information and coordinates all these affairs. Then there is going to be a use of AI, harnessing of advanced modeling, AI, and multi-source database. The initiative aims to create, so this PBI is going to create what? Planetary Mission Control Center to provide near real-time assessments and support evidence-based decision making. So essentially, this body will be created and it will be using Planetary Mission Control Center, right? So this is all about this news. If you look at the PYQs, directly, obviously, a question has not been asked, but questions from report can be asked like this, right? So in 2023, the question was with respect to the report of IPCC. So the question reads as, IPCC has predicted a global sea rise of about 1 meter by 2100 AD. What would be its impact in India and other countries in the Indian Ocean region? So from the same topic, what question can be framed is, what do you understand by ocean acidification? And in the recent report, it has been projected that ocean acidification has crossed the limit of across the safe limit. So what would be the impact of ocean acidification on world at large, and especially considering Indian interest? So something like that question can be done, or you can also practice this question. Next topic is, US President announces 100% tariffs on pharmaceutical drugs. And of course, this topic is part of GS paper 2 IR, because within IR, there's a topic of impact of politics of developed and developing countries on India's interest. So definitely this is something that is internal to US, but it will have a severe impact on India as well. So we'll need to understand what exactly is this topic all about. And of course, it will also impact India's export. So we need to know about this from the perspective of economy as well. So this news is that US has announced, or rather the US president has announced, that pharmaceutical goods will get or will have a tariff of 100% levy, but that will be not for all the drugs. It will be only for branded drugs or for patented drugs. What are branded drugs? Branded drugs are different from the generic drugs or patented drugs. So patented drugs are have certain monopoly in terms of how they are marketed, right? But the generic drugs are generally not branded, but they are cheaper in price. So here, this is targeting only branded or patented drug, and also it is also targeting all those uh, companies which does not have any manufacturing base in the US. So it also exempts those companies which have manufacturing base in the US. Next, India is called, we know that it is called the pharmacy of the world. In fact, India played a major role in the COVID pandemic, where it supplied vaccines to the global south under the Vaccine Mastery initiative. Therefore, India has been called the pharmacy of the world because of its superiority in the generic pharmaceuticals. And it is one of the largest pharma exporters in the world with a global market share of 5.7%. In fact, after India, there is Ireland, which has close to 23% of the market share, followed by Switzerland, close to 8.9%, and then you have Germany, which has around 8.1%. So even though India is called the pharmacy of the world, there are other countries who have more export of pharmaceutical compared to India, and these are these countries. Next, of course, this has been done not just on pharmaceuticals. It has this tariff is essentially on other goods as well. For example, 50% tariff has been imposed on kitchen sinks and 25% on the trucks or heavy trucks. So this basically comes as a response to the US Trade and Commerce report, whereby the US president becomes competent to increase tariff on certain products or certain goods if it considers it to be against the national security of the US. That is why US has imposed tariff on these products, because US considers that it is going to displace or have a very detrimental impact on the entire economy of the country, right? Now, for Indian perspective, we need to look at its impact, what exactly it is. So first of all, as we have discussed, that it is majorly applicable on the branded and the patented drugs. So India's generic drug ecosystem is going to be immune from this move. So 35% of India's $10 billion exports essentially is generic in nature. So it is going to be excluded. So this is a good news for us. Second is that at the same time, there are certain branded drugs, there are drugs which are considered to be branded, and they are in the domain of generic as well. For example, Sun Pharmaceutical has several drugs for headache and such as other painkillers, which essentially can be considered to be in the gray zone area. So this basically increases uncertainty, in which will increase or which will lead to delays, scrutiny, and extra costs. So again, this is not a good thing. Thirdly, this is going to lead to manufacturing shift towards US. Why? Because US FDA, Federal Drug Administration compliant Indian firms may relocate to US, which is going to hit the production in India. Then it is also going to have short-term gain for India. Why? Because the higher cost of branded drugs. So branded drugs already cost a lot, but if they are already the prices are increased, then there will be a more demand for India's generic medicine. So in a way, it will have certain good positive impact and certain negative impact. So this is all about the pharmaceutical sector. If you look at some of the status or some of the information related to this, so India ranks third worldwide by volume and 11th by value in pharmaceutical production. And in terms of the growth projection, it is projected to reach US dollar 130 billion by 2030 and $450 billion by 2047. So again, it has a huge potential to grow. And in terms of export, India majorly exports drug formulations and biologicals, and these products contribute to about 75% of the total pharmaceutical exports out of India. And India contributes to 60% of global vaccines. So these are some of the facts related to the pharmaceutical sector. But what you should be concerned from the mains perspective is how this initiative is going to impact India's pharmaceutical sector, or this particular information can be used as one of the areas of irritants between India and US. So whenever you analyze any bilateral relation, you should know about some of the background within that relation. You should know about some of the areas where the countries are contributing, and you should also know about some of the areas of recent concern. So this tariff part can also be considered as one of the areas of concern in the India-US relation, apart from the recent ones such as H-1B visa, and with respect to how US is intervening in India's internal affairs, right? All these aspects can be clubbed here. Next news. UNICEF reports highlight decline in child marriages in India. And this essentially will be part of GS Paper 2, Social Justice. So in Social Justice, we have a topic called vulnerable sections and their initiatives undertaken by the government to improve the status of vulnerable section. Also, we have GS Paper 1, within which we have to study about the salient features of Indian society, diversity in the country. So as part of Indian society, you study about various stakeholders such as senior citizens, women, child, or other composition of population. So this will be applicable for GS Paper 1 as well. Now, as the news says that there has been decline in the number of child marriages, which is a very progressive, which is a very welcoming news. And some of the supporting data is also mentioned that especially in Andhra Pradesh, it has decreased from 33% to 29% now. And so it has decreased substantially. Okay. And it also highlights the achievements from various states, right? So different states have done different measures or taken different measures as per their regional sensitivities, and they have tended to work as well. So this is a very important way in which we can learn from the experience of different states given the diversity of the India. And we also have certain uniform policies that we have followed that has also helped in reducing the child marriages in India. Now, first of all, we must understand that child marriage is, of course, it's not just a moral issue, it's also a social issue. And a lot of people tend to encourage a child marriage because it ensures that it allows for them to get their girl child to another household, and it basically reduces their obligation for paying dowry. And even though it has been banned by several legislation, because of the cultural practices, it continues to exist in several parts of India, especially in areas like Rajasthan in West Bengal, right? And because of child marriages, it has hampered the empowerment of women like anything, right? So early child marriage leads to early pregnancy, and it also leads to higher population bulge, right? It increases the total fertility rate, and also it prevents women to pursue higher education and also go for employment, thereby reducing the labor force participation rate of women. Therefore, it is essential that we treat this child marriage issue not just as a legal problem, but also as a social problem as well. So what measures have been taken by various states? Andhra Pradesh and Telangana have taken a very targeted approach. So what they did was they identified areas or regions where the child marriage was prevalent. So they started introducing awareness campaigns, and they tried to ensure that these practices were reduced, and it has led to a significant decline as well. Then in Assam, they took a different approach where they engaged with boys and men to ensure and promote sustained gender equality and ensuring that the women in their household also get the respect and the opportunities that the men and boys get. When it comes to Chhattisgarh, what they did was they used campaigning by JHO volunteers, and they provided multi-sectoral convergence, and they provided the benefits of late marriage, and they also highlighted some of the problems associated with child marriages in the country. Odisha. So what they did was child marriage free village scaled up. 12,407 villages declared child marriage free January 2022. So they also used a campaign to highlight the problems. They tried to explain problems in their own language. They also used some of the influencer as well. So thereby, this led to several villages becoming child marriage free. Now, when it comes to the initiatives taken at the all India level, so at the direct level, we have several initiatives. For example, enactment of Prohibition of Child Marriage Act, PCMA, 2006, which prohibits marriage of girls under 18 and boys under 21. Recently, there has been a demand to also increase the age of girls to also 21 for marriage. Now, what do you think? Should it be increased to 21, or should this law should continue to exist and implementation should be enhanced? You tell me what should be the way ahead. Second, National Action Plan to Prevent Child Marriage. Now, what is this? This is a comprehensive framework that aims to provide support to girls who are at the risk of early marriage. So they will track all those adolescent girls and women who are at the cusp of early marriage, and then they will use multi-sectoral convergence plan or interventions. Third, Bal Vivah Mukt Bharat campaign advocate for legislative changes that establish 18 as the minimum age of marriage without exception, ensuring legal protection for children. Okay, so these are initiatives taken at the all India level to curb child marriage directly, but there are indirect measures as well. For example, you have initiatives like Beti Bachao Beti Padhao initiative, or you have women empowerment initiatives such as you have Skill India, you have Stand Up India, and then you have Mission Shakti. So there are several initiatives which some way or the other, they promote the idea that women is not a burden to be dispensed with. They need to be nurtured, and they need to be provided with all the opportunities that men or boys get from the household. So this becomes very important from exam perspective. Next news, India's urban definition and analysis of governance gaps and a call for reform. This is a very interesting topic, part of GS paper 2 polity, where we'll understand about the urban governance and what are the challenges in the urban government, especially given the fact that we are witnessing a huge change in the demographic pattern and migration. Then what exactly is the background of this news? So Registrar General of India and the Census Commissioner, he recently said that we will continue to use the same definition of urban areas that was used in the census of 2011. So for census 2027, which is now going to be conducted recently or in the future, we'll have the same definition of urban areas. Now, what is the rationale given for that? The rationale or the reason given for that is that it will help in ensuring or in that all the trends in the urban location or the urban areas are properly mapped, and this will also help in proper comparison of the changes that have happened in the urban areas, right? So essentially this is the thing, comparativity with previous census first, and it will provide the basis for analysis of urbanization trend in the country. So that is why it was in news. Now a lot of analysts have commented that it is high time that we change the way we are defining our urban areas. So let's first understand what is the way in which we define our urban areas. So you need to understand only two things first. First is that we have what is called as statutory areas or statutory towns, and then we have census towns. A statutory town is one which is announced by the state government by a statute or by a notification. So essentially it is an urban area which the state government has announced or provided in a law or notified in the gazette that it is a statutory town, then it will be considered as a statutory town. A statutory town has the urban local body or urban governance like municipal corporation, municipality, etc. So they function in the way a proper town or a proper urban area is supposed to function. But the second way in which the urban areas is defined is that of census towns. Now, census towns are defined on the basis of three criteria. The first criteria is in terms of population. The second is in terms of population density. The third criteria is on the basis of the number of men or percentages of men that is engaged in non-farm or non-agricultural activities. Now, this is problematic at several levels because first, you are not considering women. You are only counting the men who are part of the workforce. Secondly, those town or those areas which are given the status of statutory towns, they are provided with all the urban amenities, but the census towns, they are not provided with urban amenities. So even though they are urban areas in practice, but on paper they function in terms of or like the rural areas. So they do not have the infrastructure, they do not have the funding to ensure that the urban needs are taken care of. So therefore, this is a need, or this is high time that we ensure a more inclusive approach of defining the urban area so that urban amenities infrastructure can be improved. So that is the whole point. So this we have already discussed the official data. So Census of India classifies a settlement as urban through two pathways. First is in terms of statutory town and second in terms of census town. So statutory town, all the administrative units that have been defined by the statute, and this includes statutory town with a population of 1 lakh and above are categorized as cities. Very important distinction. And here this can include cantonment board, notified area committee, etc. Census town is a settlement that is not a statutory town, but they meet specific three criteria. First is minimum population of 5,000, population density of at least 400 persons per square kilometer, and at least 75% of the men working is engaged in non-agricultural pursuits. And what are the problems with this? First is that this criteria is male-centric. It only relies on male main workforce and it excludes the women force. So it is very much patriarchal in nature. Second, it keeps the outdated standard which is unchanged for the 50 years because it only takes into consideration the population density, and in terms of agricultural or economic activities. It misclassifies urban-like settlements as rural. Then there are governance gap. Such town remains under panchayat, lacking ULB or urban local bodies level planning and resources. And it also, they suffer from infrastructure deficits such as poor urban services, such as waste segregation, waste collection, sanitation, roads, housing due to rural governance framework. Now, what exactly is the way ahead? The way ahead as proposed in the several newspaper articles is this, that we need to make the workforce criteria gender neutral. So it has to be gender neutral. Secondly, we need to use degree of urbanization, so which is called as DEGURB method supported by US Statistical Commission that can help in addressing these limitations. So this is all about this topic. Let's move to the next topic, which is Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas announced discovery of natural gas in Andaman Basin. So this will be can be mapped to GS paper 1, where we study about resources, and it can also be part of industrialization. Then this is also important from GS paper 3, economy and environment. So what is the news? News is that Petroleum Ministry has informed about the occurrence of natural gas where in Sri Vijayapuram 2 well, which is 17 kilometers from the shoreline of east coast of the Andaman Island. So this location is important from the prelims perspective. Second, if you look at the estimates with respect to hydrocarbons in India, it is 371 million metric tons of oil equivalent in the Andaman Nicobar basin. What is even more important is the estimate reserves of natural gas in India. So if you look at it, Andhra Pradesh has close to 6%, Assam has 15%, Gujarat has 5%. But more importantly, you see that in the western offshore it is 31%, but in the eastern offshore it is 24%. So this is the distribution of natural gas in India. If you look more into this detail, the location is at the junction of Andaman and Nicobar Basin within the Bengal-Arakan sedimentary system. And if you look at the tectonic setting, it is at the boundary of India and Burmese plate, which is very much favorable for hydrocarbons. And if you look at the prospects in terms of what has been the case in the earlier gas has been discovered in adjacent basins along North Sumatra, which is in Indonesia, and Irrawaddy Margui, which is in Myanmar. So it is very much likely that we are going to get a huge supply of natural gas in this region. Now, coming to the importance, why this news is important. Of course, it is important because it will lead to, or it is aligned with India's vision of a gas-based economy by 2030, and it is going to increase the share of natural gas in India's primary energy basket to 15% by 2030. Now, natural gas essentially is better compared to the fossil fuels, and also it is cheaper, and it will also have better impact on the environment. Moreover, India's natural gas production meets only about 50% of its demand, and the rest of the demand is filled through import. So it is also going to reduce India's import dependence, thereby saving so much of the foreign exchange reserves of India. If you look at some of the initiatives that have been taken to promote the natural gas exploration, the most important one is HELP 2016, that is Hydrocarbon Exploration and Licensing Policy, which had introduced a uniform licensing framework. And this was for all the hydrocarbons, including coal, including natural gas, etc. So this basically provided for uniformity in policy. And it also ensured that the administrative burden will be reduced. Secondly, the other thing that is very important and which is very less understood is open acreage policy. So what is open acreage licensing policy? It is it is like this, that the private sector or the companies can themselves go and bid in certain sectors or in areas where they consider that they will get reserves of hydrocarbons. So earlier, the exploration was driven by government. So government would provide with certain areas where exploration can take place, and then the bidding will start. But now it is to be done on the behest of the private sector. Why this is important? Because it leads to increase in research and development, and it also increases the private investment in the exploration and licensing sector. Second, India has also initiated deep water exploration mission. Within this, a large number of deep water exploration wells are planned in the offshore basins to find new discovery and fully exploit hydrocarbon reserves. So essentially, this is for exploration part. Then if you look at the other initiative, we have National Data Repository to ensure that whatever data that we get, we have collective information about it. We have National Seismic Program, which takes care of all the tectonic areas and understand that in which area we should be drilling and exploring and which area we should avoid. Then we have 100% FDI in natural gas to attract the foreign investment. So these are the initiatives which we need to take into consideration in order to understand why the natural gas is becoming very important in the whole energy basket in India, and why there is so much exploration currently going on. Let's start with the place in news now. And for this, we have Ecuador. And why it is in news? Because various indigenous groups, tribal groups of Ecuador has criticized the $47 billion oil drilling expansion plan in the Amazon. They have criticized this plan because they think that it is going to privatize the Amazon and it's going to deprive them of their age old traditional rights of using this for survival, right? So, if you look, this is the place in news. So, whenever this place in news comes, what we do is we cover this to understand where it is located and which are the countries with which it shares its border. So, if you look at Ecuador, it shares its border with two countries, one with Colombia towards the north and Peru towards the south. Then, in terms of geographical features, it has coastal lowlands and mountain area, and then it has two mountain chains, Central Andes Mountains and its two mountain chains. Then the highest peak is Mount Chimborazo, which is 6,268 meter, and it also has an active volcano called Cotopaxi in the Andes mountain. And importantly, equator passes through Ecuador. So this is very important because you know that this word, the name Ecuador basically comes from the fact that equator passes through it. Then it also has Galapagos Islands is part of Ecuador. So this is all about places in news. Let's now move to quick updates. So here the first important news is that President has recently reappointed R. Venkatramani as the Attorney General of India for a term of 2 years. What is important from the perspective of prelims is what exactly is the constitutional framework that governs the functioning of Attorney General of the country. So this is provided under Article 76 and the appointment is done by the President. What is the function? Basically, the function is that it represents the government of India legally. It advises the government along with the Solicitor General of the country, right? And it discharges functions, whatever function is provided by law or the constitution. What is the right of audience? So the Attorney General of India can appear and be heard in all the courts across India. Terms of office, definitely the Attorney General essentially serves at the pleasure of the President, which means that he or she can be removed anytime whenever the presidents feel like. So there is no separate process of removal or impeachment like various constitutional bodies are there. Then parliamentary rights. So this article is very important, Article 88, from which even UPSC had asked a question in the past. So the Attorney General of India has the right to speak and participate in proceedings of either house. At the same time, the Attorney General cannot vote in the house because he is not a member of the house. So this is all about Attorney General of India. The second news is about appointment of judges. So President has recently appointed 24 judges in the Allahabad High Court. So from exam perspective, what is important is the article that is used to appoint the Supreme Court and the High Court judges. So as you all know, as per the for the Supreme Court judges, Article 124 Clause 2 is used, and for the High Court judges, it is Article 217 that is used. So as you all know that it is done by the President, but the advice, the President does not appoint anyone. It is on the basis of advice given by the collegium, right? It is not, and this collegium is essentially, it comprises of 3 judges. So first you have CJI and then 2 senior most judges of the Supreme Court. At the same time, the advice of the Chief Justice of the concerned High Court is also taken care. So here you have 5 stakeholders. You have President, you have 3 judges of the collegium, and then you have the Chief Justice of the High Court. So this is all about the appointment process. Third is about Sanchay Jan Bhagidari JSJB initiative, and why this was in news because Bidar district of Karnataka has won this Jan Sanchay Jan Bhagidari. Jan Sanchay basically means, Sanchay means conservation, Bhagidari basically means participation under the campaign Jal Shakti Abhiyan Catch the Rain. Also, interestingly, Telangana has secured the top position in rainwater conservation. So this is the news all about. Then what we need to know is about the basics of the scheme. So what is the scheme all about? JSJB's initiative. It was launched in 2014. And what is the purpose? To conserve water, and how? It is through the community participation. and ownership. And it is under Ministry of Jal Shakti, and it seeks all, and it takes care of all the aspects of water discharge, water recharge through rainwater harvesting, aquifer recharge, etc. Next, very important news, G4, L69 and C10. These terms are very important from the perspective of UN Security Council reforms. And why this was in news? Because the Indian External Affairs Minister had convened a joint meeting of L69 group and the C10. Also, G4 ministers have reiterated their commitment for UN Security Council reform. You may be knowing that as of now, the UN is meeting for its for the 80th, or the 80th Assembly meeting is currently going on. And on the sidelines of this, several meetings also happen. So in this also, there was a very important initiative of UN reforms. And these countries or these groupings have their own agenda for reforms. So G4, as you all know, it is group of 4, which contains countries like Brazil, Germany, India, and Japan. What is their purpose? They support each other's claim in the permanent UNSC membership. As you all know that there are 5 permanent members and 10 non-permanent members in the UN Security Council, and these countries also aspire to be a permanent member. Then what is L69? L69 group, interestingly, contains 42 countries. Okay, so 42 countries from Africa, Asia, Latin America, Caribbean, Pacific, including India. And you tell me why it is called L69 and not L42 or something like that. Because all of these grouping is based on the number of their member, C10 or G4. But L69 is something which is named very differently. So what is the reason why it is called L69 and not, say, L42 or something? Then C10 is Committee of 10. It has 10 African members, Algeria, all these countries. Make sure that you depict or you understand where all these countries are located in the map. Okay. And what is the purpose of C10? It is for to represent Africa's common position on UNSC reform. Next news is about dated securities and sovereign green bonds. This is basically a static concept, and why this was in news? Because of a news. So we must, whenever any topic of Indian economy comes into news, what is important is that we understand the underlying concepts which is used in that particular news. So what is the news? The news is that the government of India, in consultation with RBI, has finalized its borrowing program. So what exactly the news says? That government has finalized how much amount it is going to borrow. Why it needs to borrow? Because government runs several programs, right? Development initiatives, expenditures on armed forces, etc. So how does the government function? So government functions because it needs to borrow money from some time to time for conducting various developmental and law and order functions. So this essentially is done here in 2 ways, either through borrowing or getting the bonds, if that is, or through equities. So here there are 2 things which are mentioned: dated securities, which is government bond. So securities which carry a fixed or floating coupon or interest rate, which is paid on the face value on a half yearly basis. So in bond, you are assured of getting your principal along with certain interest. Okay. But the tenure here is, since this is a dated security, so dated basically means that it is going to be in long term, right? So the tenure is 5 years to 40 years. But if you look at short-term government bonds, it can be cash management bills, CMBs, or treasury bills, so which can be for less than 1 year as well. The other instrument that government use or which has used is sovereign green bonds. So how sovereign green bond is different from the traditional bond is because it is used for certain purpose of environmental reclamation or environmental projects, right? So whatever is some benefit with respect to climate change, etc., that is done through sovereign green bonds. And it was introduced by the Union government in the budget of 2022-2023. So that is all that is important from this news. Next is cafe norms. So this is not about coffee. It is about something else. Corporate average fuel efficiency norm. So why this was in news? Because the Bureau of Energy Efficiency B has revised the draft cafe norms. And the new norms have been introduced, which is going to provide special relief to the small automobile vehicles and those which are using flex fuels and strong hybrid vehicles, right? So, what exactly are CAFE norms? CAFE norms are were introduced by the government in 2017 under the Energy Conservation Act of 2001, and the aim is to mitigate fuel consumption, to reduce the fuel consumption by lowering carbon dioxide emission, and to reduce oil dependence, and to curb the air pollution. What are the applicability? It is applicable for passenger cars with seating capacity not exceeding 9 persons, including the driver, and gross vehicle weight not exceeding 3,500 kg. So this is applicability, and they came into force from 1st April 2027 until 31st March 2032. So this is more than sufficient for the prelims perspective. Next, green firecrackers. So recently, Supreme Court was hearing a judgment with respect to whether to ban the sale of firecrackers or not. So earlier, Supreme Court made the observation that firecrackers should be banned not just in Delhi, but it should be banned all across the country. But yesterday, Supreme Court had a change of heart, and then it allowed that green crackers should be sold in the country, or in Delhi or in the NCR region. Why? Because it would seek to balance the right to work of the people who are engaged in this industry, along with right to of clean environment of the people. So essentially, the Supreme Court has again done a balancing act here. So where we need to understand what exactly are green crackers. So green crackers, as the name suggests, they do not contain harmful chemicals, and they are not very much indulged, or they tend to reduce air pollution, or they do not create as much air pollution as the normal ones do. What are they composed of? Flower pots, pencils, sparkles, maroons, bombs, and chakar. So basically, they use minimum use of aluminium, and they don't contain, importantly, barium substance, which is used in firecracker to add green color. Benefit is reduced at least 30% emissions using particulate matters, potassium nitrate as an oxidant. And how you can identify whether something is green firecracker or not, by identifying this logo, which is CSIR NEERI India. NEERI is National Environment Engineering Research Institute. It has its headquarters in Pune, in my opinion, if I'm not wrong. Pune or Nagpur, sorry, I think it's in Nagpur. Right? So the point is that you should know about what are the firecrackers, and you should know about how the Supreme Court is balancing two rights simultaneously. So what are these rights? One, right to livelihood, and second, right to clean environment. The last news for today is Russia-Iran nuclear plants deal. So they have a deal for the construction of 4 nuclear plants have been struck with a value of 25 billion, is going to be held in Sirik, which is in the Iran province, was signed between the Iran Hormuz company and Rosatom, which is of Russian origin. And each plant will have a capacity of this much, 1,255 megawatts. Presently, Iran has only one operational nuclear power plant in Bushehr. Now, this news becomes very important because in the recent Israel-Iran skirmish or attack, Israel tried to attack the nuclear facility of Iran. Right? So Iran is now trying to legitimize its nuclear enrichment facilities or the peaceful use of nuclear energy, and therefore this collaboration is going to enhance its credibility in the eyes of IAEA. Right? So what are the existing nuclear sites in Iran? You have Natanz Enrichment Complex, Fordo Fuel Enrichment Plant, and Isfahan Uranium Conversion and Fuel Fabrication Complex. So this is all about important news from this side. So with this, we are coming to an end of this discussion. I hope this was useful to you. Make sure that you participate actively in this whole exercise, attempt the questions, and provide your answers in the comment below. Thank you so much, and all the best.